What's going on, everybody? Doc, Average Gamer Guys, back yet again. It's more Escape from Tarkov. And today's video, we're going to jump in and talk a little bit about what you can expect when you hit level 20 and you open up that flea market. We're going to talk about the barter items. We're going to talk about where you potentially can make some pretty good money if you're holding on to some things as you make your way to level 20, as well as maybe some things that you should just be using and putting towards your hideout upgrades and probably don't have the value that you might expect if you haven't quite got the flea market opened up yet. So we're going to jump into that. I'm also going to talk a little bit about my stats as far as my journey to level 20, and love to hear in the comments how you guys are progressing, how you're liking wipe 12.11 and everything this new wipe brought. So let's jump in and let's chat about it. So first things first, I think it's important. You're looking at about 345,000 and change experience to get to level 20. Everybody's going to progress here differently. I'm actually going to do a separate video that talks a little bit about at least my thoughts and tips and ideas as far as that progression and how to get to level 20 in a quick and efficient manner. There are definitely easier ways. I'm going to give some kind of additional tips of things that you can do. So kind of watch out for that on the channel. But I will tell you, I had originally thought it was going to be a little bit longer of a grind, and it wasn't quite as bad as I thought. Obviously, the progression to level 10 is very quick, very easy. If you played last wipe, you know that. It was pretty quick. You could do it in a matter of, a handful of raids with some good ones, some survives, maybe getting a couple of tasks done, and boom, you had the flea market unlocked. Level 20, I think the jury's still out on this. There's still a lot of discussion going on. I think it's definitely made for an interesting transition for gameplay for a lot of folks, and it definitely has had the intended effect, I think, of extending that kind of early wipe atmosphere. Bad guns, bad ammo, interesting, sometimes very silly fights. So it is what it is. We got to deal with it. But I will tell you, don't be intimidated with getting to level 20. I really don't think it was that bad. Felt the progression was pretty smooth, and again, we'll talk in a separate video that should be up on the channel here pretty soon about at least my experience and my thoughts on how to get there pretty quick and efficient. So let's really quick, I'm just going to show, I took this screenshot, I'm a couple of raids past this already, I think I'm actually level 22 now. This is the post-raid screen from when I hit level 20. I actually got a bunch of experience in a raid, a really good raid, killed Rochelle and the guards, had to survive. But this is what it took me. It took me 52 raids, played for about 4 days. I started a couple days after the wipe got started, and put a decent amount of hours in. But 52 raids, I had a 48% survival rate. I will tell you, I really grinded tasks. I'm really looking to try to grind tasks. I'm very interested in hideout progression. If you've watched any of my previous videos, you know I think the benefits for the hideout, the sooner you can get them, the better they compound. And that's been a big focus. So I want to grind hideout. I'm trying to do tasks to get all that stuff done. So my survival rate probably could have been a little bit higher. Thank you, Stirrup, for that, and Factory. But I will tell you, I started this wipe with a 7-in-a-row streak. It was really awesome. I got a lot of progress. It was really fantastic. KD is not terrible. And obviously have died a good handful of times as well. But I honestly didn't think it was that bad. 52 raids is a lot, maybe, depending on if you only get a handful of raids in. I will tell you, you can definitely, without a doubt, do this faster. But 52 raids is also not that many. I have a long average lifespan, too. I spend a lot of time in raid. A lot of times I try to farm up kills. I just try to loot a good amount. I always try to make sure that I'm taking something out that's useful, unless I get some good quest progress. And again, I'm very focused on tasks and quests and trying to get that done. So that's just kind of my base stats. Definitely not the best in the world at all, but I figured I would show that. So that was my journey to level 20. So the premise of the video is, what can you expect? A lot of folks, if you've played wipe before, you know that reaching the flea market can be a really big benefit to grinding money very easily, right? You can put a lot of offers on the flea. You can get some crazy good money if you farm right, if you pick up the right barter items. Here's what I will tell you. That general rule I still feel like is in effect, okay? In general, if you're used to it, if you've played wipe before, you can still use that same premise to make quite a bit of money. I'll say that up front. However, there are a lot of items that I had anticipated still being at a pretty high value, because again, we're very early in the wipe still, that we're not quite there. Now, the farther we get in, the longer this video goes, this is obviously going to dynamically change. More people are going to get access, more things are going to become available, more folks are actually going to be buying things. That's the interesting thing, is consider that as more people get to the flea market, not only can they post things, but they also might have needs that they're going to fill, specifically hideout needs that they're going to fill with the flea market. So it's going to be a little bit of a give and take. So I feel like this is going to be pretty good info, at least for a while. But just keep that with a grain of salt. The farther we get into wipe, the less this information I think is usable, and the strategy is as far as making money. So I'm going to run down a couple of things that I thought were really good, just to pay attention to if you are holding on to them, or if you're grinding, maybe you're doing some whatever runs and you're not too interested in hideout upgrades and you just want to open up with a good stack of cash as soon as you get to the flea market. I think there are some gems in here that you're definitely going to be successful with. And they would be the standard stuff that you would expect. So really building materials up front, corrugated hose, huge all-star. These are always very, very expensive at the start of a wipe because you need an absolute crap ton of them for the hideout. So this one, these will significantly drop in price as more come to the market. They're relatively accessible if you know a good interchange loot run. If you're looking for one, our hardcore series, we do a lot of it. It's very easy. It's been being used a lot right now, I can tell you, because I've used it a few times myself. But this is one thing you can farm basically almost on every map. There's always toolkits. There's always these things that you can find, and corrugated hose is going to be one item that comes up very, very regularly. So keep your eye on that. Keck tape is also another good one. While this doesn't necessarily sell a lot more than you can sell it to the traders, this is a great one for anybody looking to get ice cream cones done, because you need it for lavatory in order to make those 60 rounders. So keep that in the back of your mind. That's another good one to hang on to. The standard stuff that is just generally more rare is also good, although it's arguable if you should sell it to a trader if you're trying to get level up rep, or if you want to put it on the flea market, maybe to make a little bit of extra cash. Pressure gauge is a really good example of that. You need 2 of these, interestingly enough. You need 2 of these or a couple of these to get some of your upgrades, but this is generally going to be what it sells for to the trader. So take that with a grain of salt. Great item to pick up and throw in your container. That way you can put it on the flea if you want to, or sell it to a trader if you want to work that rep or you end up dying. So keep that in mind as well. There was another one specifically in building materials I wanted to highlight. Xenomorph actually sells pretty well. This is one of those gems. I think if you end up finding a couple of these, you need quite a few for your hideout upgrades as well. So this is a good one. Single slot by 3. So 1 by 3. So per slot isn't the best value ever, but again, if you're just grabbing whatever you can, this is a good one to focus on. With the electronics, there's not a ton here, ironically enough. Typically certain things like capacitors, wires actually do sell pretty well. So that's one that, keep your eye on. These are pretty good seller because you do need a lot of them. There's not a ton others, your phased arrays, all this stuff that's normally very expensive is still very expensive. I'm going to talk about some things that you can actually get a deal on, so keep your eye on. Especially if you're opening up and unlocking the flea market pretty early in the wipe, you might want to stockpile some of these things, so we'll jump into that next. Probably the biggest standout, even things like graphics cards are pretty cheap right now. Biggest standout, in my opinion, is the CPU fan. 19 to 20k is really solid for this. Single slot item. You need a ton of these as well if you are working hideout progression. This is another one of those great items. Throw it into your container if you can. If you get out of the raid, you can keep it found in raid. You can sell it on the flea market for a good value, or obviously use it if you end up dying. It sells okay to the traders as well, but this is a good one to keep in mind and kind of keep on hand. So just keep that in the back of your mind. Again, iridiums, these certain things, military circuit boards, the stuff is actually, a lot of this stuff is relatively cheap, or what I would expect it to be around, specifically later on in the wipe, or kind of at the normal price. Nixers, another good one to keep an eye on. This is a great one. Same thing. You need a lot for security, but 37k right now for them is pretty dang good. So that's a good, and that's a single slot item. So those are really the gems that you want to find out, because per slot value is really important, especially if you're throwing it into your container. So keep that in mind. Not a ton of other surprises, interestingly enough, here with the electronics as far as what I look through. Energy elements, if you manage to get a battery out and it stays found in raid, you can sell it for a cool mill. This is pretty standard. This is a really good one that'll probably keep a very high value for a long time, because people are going to make this to make car batteries. Car batteries are another one. If you end up getting a car batteries and you don't care about the hideout, or you don't care about car repair with therapist and completing that task, this is a great one to sell very early. You need one for vents, so keep that in mind if you are working your hideout. I think vents level 2 you need one. Other than that though, car repair is really the big driver for a lot of these, so keep that in mind. This is a great one. A tough item to get out sometimes, especially if you're rocking a standard account and don't have a gamma, but a great one if you can, and you can make quite a bit of money on these. Nothing too big in the flammable materials spot, interestingly enough, with the exception of fire clean gun lube. A very hard item to find, has some very regular spawns. Obviously labs is a big one. Most folks, if you don't have access to the flea market, you probably don't have access to labs unless you were able to kill a boss and grab a key card or get lucky with your scav. So if you do end up finding one of these, I actually found one of these, threw it in my container. I ended up dying because you obviously need one of these for Kappa, which is a separate story in and of itself. But you also need it for your upgrade, I believe, with your workbench. So this is a great one if you can get it out, post it. You're definitely going to make money on this one. Huge single slot value at 140k, and it'll probably hang around there for a while because it is relatively rare. And again, labs right now pretty hard to get into. Interestingly enough, and I don't want to jump around too much, but if you need fuel is actually pretty cheap. These are maybe a little bit more expensive. You don't mind using the metal fuel tanks, maybe you're going to make some grenade cases. This is fantastic price for these right now. So keep that in mind. There's a couple other things. Those really were the two highlights that I wanted to talk about. In addition to, if you really want to stock up, since I am on, since I'm on that discussion, these are like stupid cheap comparatively to later in the wipe. I think at the later part of last wipe, these were up in the 350s to ish or so. So for these to be 70k, nobody can use them right now, so people are pulling them out. They're throwing them on the flea market to get, honestly, 70k is pretty good, but this is a 9-slot item. This is something, if you find, hang on to it. You can sell it for later if you don't plan on using this, but if you want to stock up on these, this is the place to go. Same thing with water filters. Water filters are dumb cheap right now, and great if you can get your water collector going and and start making some super water for your boost generator. As we kind of continue on, nothing really too crazy in household materials, except for, where is it? The drain cleaner. A relatively more rare item, although there are quite a few spawns for it, specifically on Shoreline. But this is another one. You need, I think, 3 of them for nutrition level 3, which is a huge perk if you can get that upgraded with the hideout. And this sells great. This is a 2-slot item. That's huge. If you end up finding this in a hidden stash, it's another good place to find them. Definitely hang on to this. Same thing with sodium. Interestingly enough, another really great single slot item. Very easily lootable, in my opinion, on customs in what I call the ZB13 extract building, and hugely profitable right now at 50k. And again, you need 3 of these for nutrition level 3, so keep that in mind. Medical supplies, you're not going to see a whole ton here. If you want to get a pretty relatively cheap LEDX right now, 470, 500k is actually pretty good. So I'm actually pretty close to this and needing one, so I'm actually considering buying one, at least to be able to turn into for my med station level 3. I've got quite a bit of other hideout upgrades to go, but this would be another good one. If you've got the cash, capitalize on grabbing this if you intend to upgrade your hideout and you don't want to worry about having to go farm one. This is huge for you. So that's my recommendation. Other than that, there's not a ton of other stuff. Blood sets always sell pretty good. Syringes, you need quite a few, but you get a lot of these things now. Piles of beds used to be really expensive at the start of a wipe because you could use them for a lot of good stuff. As you can see, they're just not quite there. There's a lot on the market, and you get a lot of these. And I think, again, people are really holding on to a lot of barter items. So there are certain things that seem to be just less value, which, again, I was pretty surprised about. So hopefully this is beneficial for you. Tools. Interestingly enough, the one thing that I was very surprised about is that tool sets are selling like they are. If you have tool sets, fantastic. Definitely sell them. Don't forget that Mechanic has a barter for 5 very simple items that you can find all over the place, okay? So you can easily make the trade for these. You need tool sets for a lot with the Hideout. You need them to fix a couple of things in factory. So you need these, whether you're doing Hideout upgrades or quest progression or both. However, 70, 80K for these is ridiculous. I would not spend this. I would go farm the 5 items that you need: the tape, the measuring tape, the wrench, the screwdriver, the yellow pliers, and barter trade these to Mechanic and be on your day. So be on your way, be on your day. Interestingly enough, if you really wanted to probably make some profit, although wrenches are really expensive too, so keep that in mind. You might be able to find yourself a way to kind of make a little bit of cash here, because a lot of this stuff is really, really cheap. At least if you're looking at getting this and you don't want to farm it, buy these items separately and maybe go find yourself a wrench. That's probably the best way to do it. So ratchet wrenches, you need a couple of these. These are actually what they sold for last time. I expected this to be one of the higher priced items just because of its rareness. Rareability is the word I wanted to use, and that's not a real word. Rareness. And there's actually a pretty good amount of these on. So just keep that in mind as well. And then valuables, as you would expect, there's a certain couple of things. Bronze lions are always going to do really well at the start of the wipe because these help to trade for a docs case, which is hugely beneficial for anybody that's working through it. I was really surprised that gold skull rings, even gold neck chains, and even rollers were not that crazy expensive. This is obviously great for a single slot item. If you end up finding it and you want to sell it, absolutely do that. However, again, I really expected you need quite a few neck chains. You need some roller submarine gold wristwatches. You need some gold skull rings. These are not that expensive comparatively for what I expected them to be. So just kind of keep that in mind. Other than that, the only other really thing that I want to highlight here is keys. That's probably the other best benefit you have. There's gear on here that's actually super cheap for what I thought it was going to be. Where's the one that I want to call out specifically? This right here. I mean, 170K for this level class of armor. While this needs to be repaired, that's just nuts to me. So if you're looking to push for level 20 to get to the flea market and you've got some cash, you can run some pretty solid gear pretty quickly, as you normally could. But again, I expected some of this stuff to be a little bit more expensive, and it is pretty accessible. So just keep that in mind. Your cases and your all this stuff is actually pretty expensive as well. So if you're lucky enough to get a marked key and you find some of these things and you want to sell them, more power to you. But that is pretty standard as far as what we would expect. As always, keys are going to be really expensive. Interestingly enough, in my opinion, most of these key cards are pretty cheap. This one's kind of expensive, but some of these are pretty cheap. So if you can grind some money right now, you can definitely find yourself some very cheap savings on blue, violet, black. I don't know if I would pay 4 mil for, but those are good prices in my opinion for these items. So if you can grind the money, if you've got a really good money route, you don't care about doing all the other stuff that I've been talking about through this, and you just want to get labs access, now's the time to buy them. So get to level 20 and make your moves. Keys here, if it's a quest key, it's going to be expensive, and there are actually more quest keys now that definitely have jumped in price because of some of the additional quests, specifically the reserve quests that they've added. Marked key, this is a great one. If you don't care about hitting this room and you don't ever plan on hitting dorms, these things are selling. I saw this list probably right before I start recording was up to about here, and it was close to the 1 million mark. So time this right as best you can, but even if you made 650K off this key, that's huge progress, especially early in the wipe. You can get yourself like 3 hex grids for this. So, you know, that's pretty good. Again, all the other normal keys that you would expect to be pretty expensive quest keys. A lot of keys here can easily make 500k, depending on what it is. Again, there's KSM key is one of those. You know, I don't really know how good this key was prior to this wipe, but this is now a key requirement for a quest. So a lot of folks are going to be looking for this that might not have otherwise wanted to purchase it. And again, you can never go wrong finding a reserve key. Most of them sell to traders for at least 50k, and then some of them, again, are upwards of the millions. There is one of the orb keys, like orb 1, easy 750, you know what I mean? So interestingly enough, those are things to keep an eye on for, but that is pretty standard. Ultra medical storage unit key, you can make yourself a cool 2.5 million. So if you're lucky enough to find a handful of those, more power to you. But that's really what I wanted to talk about. So I kind of wanted to just help. What can you expect with this? Sorry if this was a little bit longer of a video, but I want this, and hopefully this was helpful information. If you're kind of sitting there and you're kind of grinding towards it and you're like, man, what do I keep? What should I be using? What's going to cost me some money? Like I said, I was very surprised in certain items that they were not more expensive. I don't think the hideout progression is going to be quite as tough as it would have been maybe at the start of, you know, previous wipe, when certain things were, you know, very, very expensive. You still definitely have a great opportunity to make a lot of money, so keep that in mind. But other than that, I think you can make a good amount of money, play the system pretty well as get, again, whatever your focus ends up being. You have a good opportunity to get your hideout upgraded for relatively cheap if you hold on to the right thing. So hopefully this was helpful. If it was, drop a like. We do appreciate all of the support. Drop a comment down below if there's anything specific you think I missed that I should have covered. I really, again, want to talk about where you could find some good opportunities, as well as what you could pick up pretty cheap if you're looking at doing that. So in addition, if you ever want to come hang out, we do stream on Twitch Fridays and Saturdays, 8:30 Eastern Standard Time. Those links are in the description. We'd love to have you, hang out with you. We play a ton of EFT, some other games as well. We got a lot of EFT content coming up, a couple of other series. We're finishing up our season 1 of Hardcore, stepping into season 2. I've got our full playthrough raid series that's going to get started up here pretty soon, as well as some more just kind of informational things, testing out some of the new weapons, some sites, and different things like that. So if you're interested in any of that content, stick around to the channel. We would appreciate a subscription. We also have a Discord and a Twitter. Discord, we always post when we're going live because we do randomly stream throughout the week as well. And we've got a growing community that's playing a lot of EFT. So if you're looking for some folks to kind of game with, if you don't have somebody to run some raids with, I'm sure you can find somebody in our growing Discord community. So with that, I'll close it out. Doc, Average Gamer Guys, as always, thank you so much for watching. Catch you in the next video. Peace.